Very good day to you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Candy Talk here on Herman Manyora's YouTube channel. My name is Evans Okinyi. I'm glad that you've joined us once again for these conversations. I'm here with Wakili Willis Otieno, who is the Deputy Party Leader of Safina Party. And of course, he calls himself the Deputy President Designate. Is that the case, Wakili?
It is. The voice of the people is the voice of God.
You want to leave the courtrooms and go all the way to serve the people?
We are serving the people.
Okay. Even at this level now.
Yes.
I have seen your take on when the next elections should actually take place, drawn a lot of reactions. And of course, the latest person to weigh in on the same is Raila Odinga. He says, look, this is a matter that was dealt with conclusively by the lower courts, and therefore the elections are for 2027. That is what he says. And he has urged the Supreme Court to actually uphold that particular statement. What's your response anyway?
The question will be very simple. Which is then the date of the next elections? Which law will you use to arrive at that date? If you ignore Article 136 of the Constitution. And even if you look at the response that has been filed in court, Raila Odinga, they have used the decisions which were made by the High Court and the Court of Appeal on MCAs who under Article 177(4) of the Constitution are given a 5-year term. Those MCAs went to court to say, why are you calling elections before the end of my constitutionally guaranteed 5-year term comes to an end? And the courts told them, we are sorry. The same Constitution says that the elections must be held in the 5th year, on the second Tuesday of August in the 5th year. So we are sorry for your 5-year terms, but your elections must be called before that 5-year has ended, because the elections are held inside the 5th year with the other elections. That is why no MCA has ever served for a solid 5-year term in the Constitution. So having not served since the 2010 Constitution, no MCA has served for a solid 5-year term.
Okay.
The elections are normally held before the 5 years from the date they are sworn in comes to an end. Then it begs the question, why are we trying to circumvent the Constitution? And that is what we are going to ask the Supreme Court to adjudicate. Because Article 136(2) is very clear. You hold the elections in the 5th year, not every 5 years, not of the 5th year, in the 5th year.
Okay.
So your duty is to simply ask, when does the 5th year start running? And the 5th year commences on the 9th of August 2026, and it ends on the 8th of August 2027. So look for the second Tuesday of August inside that 5th year period. You conduct your elections. Anything outside that is unconstitutional. And it is attempting to form a government in a manner that is inconsistent with the law, which is treasonous. It's an act of treason. It is an usurpation of the sovereign rights of the people of Kenya. And there should be consequences to it. Raila Odinga has right to argue his point in court, and the court will look at it. Over and above, one thing that Raila Odinga raises, to me that's the main issue that he raises, is that he doesn't wish the Supreme Court to hear the matter. He wishes the matter should be heard by the High Court, because it affects other elections. But the petitioners who have gone to court are very clear. To them, they're asking the court to interpret and to apply Article 136, which only relates to presidential elections. Nothing stops another person from filing his own suit on the other seats. This one is very peculiar and particular to the position of president. And the courts have held numerous times that in as much as other elections are held on the same day, the presidential election is an independent election in its own right. Just like the MC election is an independent election. And you cannot use the facts in the MC elections to prosecute the facts in the presidential election, even though they are held on the same date. That is why when it even comes to dispute resolution, each claimant goes to a different court, depending on the court with jurisdiction.
Okay.
Presidential go to Supreme Court, gubernatorial, senatorial, member of parliament go to High Court. MCAs start at the Magistrates Court. So they are all different elections.
So what the petitioners here are really dealing with is a presidential election.
They are asking the court to interpret and apply Article 136 2A, which Article 136 2A speaks only to presidential election.
Okay.
Election of a president, in fact, is the subtitle.
What happens to the other electoral...
The moment the Supreme Court renders itself on that question, then the legal interpretation that is given applies to all others. So you can start there because it affects presidential, but then now the IBC will have to read the law as interpreted by the Supreme Court and apply it.
Okay.
So they will also read it to apply it to the other elections. So you don't have to start from the High Court. You can start from up there because the Supreme Court, in an advisory opinion, has said before that they can exercise jurisdiction in pre-election disputes that affect presidential elections. This is one such dispute.
Okay. I saw an argument somewhere by, is it Lifelines Media, talking of the Constitution of Kenya recognizes calendar years. It begins on January. That is what they were actually saying. Therefore, they were like, if elections were held on that particular day, then for us to know the exact date when the next election should take place, then we should count from the next.
You know,
yeah, that is January.
Everybody reads their own constitution, but there's only one constitution of the Republic of Kenya. And that constitution, any Kenyan who has access to it, I invite them to read Article 259(5)(c).
Okay.
It tells you how to calculate a year, which is very clear. You count from the date when the event is supposed to take place to the eve of the corresponding date in the following year. So if the date of the election was 9th of August, so you count from the 9th of August to the eve of the corresponding date in the following year. The date in the corresponding year, the 9th of August, 2023. The eve will be 8th of August. So you count from 9th of August, 2022, to the eve of the corresponding date, which is the 8th of August, 2023. That is year one. That is in application of the provisions of Article 259(5)(c), which tells you how to compute year. There is nowhere in our constitution where you are told to calculate years based on calendar year. The constitution has told you how to calculate a year.
Okay. Well, that is well put. Let's wait and see what the Supreme Court will actually have to say on this particular issue here. But in as much as this is happening, of course, I wonder whether the elections will take place next year or 2027. But it's like the government is still going on with making sure that they deal firmly and decisively with dissenting voices. Recently, we've seen what happened to George Koimburi, the member of parliament for Juja. What befell also Malala in Kakamega with the DCP, and all these manner of actions that the government actually is taking. It seems that maybe they're not actually tired of doing all these things. Do you see some sort of a point where the government will actually have to face the consequences of some of these actions?
Of course, what they're doing is not new. Mambo si mageni hapa mjini. They've been done before. And this is the same template of a regime that has failed. Abductions, kidnappings, fake charges, political harassment, disrupting political meetings. It's the same. Buying of citizens or opposition supporters. That's the same. But they never work. They've not worked before, and they will not work even in this particular instance. What Mheshimiwa Koimburi was taken through was quite unfortunate. Picked from his way from a church and dumped in a coffee plantation. Probably tortured, breathing in pain. And yet even no charges were preferred against him. The person who picked him, the Subaru that picked him is there for people to see. People saw it. People witnessed the abduction. And these are the things that the regime of William Ruto had been doing over and over. That is why the police service needs to be very clear that when you want to arrest somebody, for as long as you know the residence of that person or his abode, you can always issue summons. This thing of just grabbing people on the streets, look what now they are doing. They are now operating outside the realm of the rule of law. They are now engaging in acts of abductions and torture against innocent civilians. But all those will fail. I remind you that there are even some DCI officers and NIS officers who allegedly abducted some Indians, tortured them, and killed them. They are in court today. What they did to those Indians did not make the political side they were serving to succeed. They lost. So what makes you think that even these ones, they will succeed? They will still lose. Those tactics are not equivalent to votes. And once the voters have made up their mind on a particular issue, you cannot change them. As it is now, the Kenyan voter has made his mind that William Ruto is a one-termer. And amalize aende. That is where the people of Kenya are. So no killings, no abductions, no fake charges, nothing they will do. I've told you here on this platform, even if William Ruto was to build gold-plated roads to everybody's individual home, they'll still not vote for him again. The people have moved on. We've crossed the Rubicon with William Ruto. The conversation now we should be having is what next?
Okay, so I wonder what goes on in the mind of a president here, because at the end of the day, he's also in this very race. And he came forth and said at that time that, look, all these abductions have been stopped, and now Kenyans can actually live freely. We thought that was it. But then having witnessed that, it seems like we are having a government that speaks from both sides of the mouth.
But that is vintage William Ruto. Are you surprised? He's always been doing that. There's nothing he says that he means it. I mean, we should not even be discussing his lies. That is his modus operandi. He says this today, he does this tomorrow. Says this in the morning, he does the opposite in the evening. So, who still believes that man's mouth? So, it's not surprising. He had said they were not doing the abductions. Then he says now they have stopped them. Then now the abductions are still going on. So, which one do you believe? You can't believe the man. He lies like Ananias, as I've told you before.
A reign of fear and terror, that is what we are actually witnessing here. And you're saying here that these things will not actually work for him. Maybe he knows.
When you meet Kenyans on the street, they look fearful. Yeah, the reign of fear and terror is there. Terror is there being meted on innocent civilians. But are Kenyans terrified? Are they scared? The more you arrest, the more you abduct, the more you advertise how repressive you are. As my party leader normally puts it, William Ruto came to office through the ballot. You can't rule through the gun, having come in through the ballot. He came in by the ballot. He must rule by the ballot, which is rule of law, not by the gun. So the more guns he deploys, the more strong-arm tactics he deploys, the more he's strengthening the resolve to kick him out. In fact, he's just increasing the numbers. If yesterday you had only 70% of Kenyans wanting him out, now today you have 80%.
Don't you think that the president is alive to this truth that you're talking about here?
Even if he's alive to it, it's his destiny. Let him prepare for his destiny.
Okay.
He has a destiny and a date with the people of Kenya. And they'll serve it to him in the way in which he's prepared it. Because all he's doing in this phase, he's preparing his dish. When it is served, he must be ready to partake of it. He can't run away from it. Let him take it. Let him own it. That is what awaits him. The people are done with William Ruto and Kenya Kwanza.
Okay.
And there's nothing that can save him.
Do you think when that period of elections reaches, that there are certain people who will just go to the ballot and say, come on, look, we are not voting for President William Ruto because of the abductions that were there. Maybe that is one of the reasons as to why he doesn't actually care whether these things take place or not, because maybe according to him, they will not affect his vote count at the end of the day.
It's okay. He can have the confidence of a fool and think that Kenyans will forget these things. But they will not. Today, Kenyans are keeping receipts of everything that is happening. We are in the era of media, internet. where everybody's a walking media house. Everybody's a walking library. Just on the click of a button, you're able to retrieve old files, archived information. And people are living these things. It's not like we are telling the stories of Mau Mau in 1952. These are things that are happening in the year 2025. We are living in 2025. Kenyans are seeing them, are documenting them, and they're forming their opinions. That's what I've said. They've made up their minds. There's nothing he can do. The damage has been done. So whether he abducts, he doesn't abduct, whether they kill, they don't kill, whether they disrupt political meetings, they don't disrupt, the die is cast. He's been defined, and his fate has been sealed.
Well, you say so. Maybe the president has a different idea, but then time will tell.
We will invite you to the celebrations once the Kenyan people may communicate their decision on the 11th of August 2026, 9 p.m. We have a date with destiny.
2026, if at all the Supreme Court
The
agrees with you.
date, the date at that time, the Kenyan people will have concluded counting and sharing all the results in their respective polling stations. We will have a president-elect in the Republic of Kenya. And it will not be William Ruto.
Okay. Who will it be then?
Jimmy Wanjigi.
All the best, Wakili. Ladies and gentlemen, weigh in and tell us what you actually think. Allow me to stop for now till we have this conversation again. My name is Evans Okinyi.